Welcome, Alchemist. If you've already chosen your doorway, check the timestamps below. If not, I'm going to give you a closer look. Our question today is, what will make your spirit feel more liberated right now? Doorway number 1, the vision. Doorway number 2, the poet. Doorway number 3, the thread. Choose your doorway, Alchemist, and let's begin the great work. Hello, Alchemist, and welcome to your initiation through doorway number 1. You chose the vision. What will make your spirit feel more liberated right now? The vision. I feel like I'm getting this feeling that you have had a vision about your life and your soul. And we're going to look at your shadow card and get a little bit more of an impression of what that means. Okay. But my first impression is that you have had a dream or a vision, something that's really, really meant something to you. And it feels like that life has continued to kind of create circumstances where you feel like you can't do it. But with that shadow card, we'll get to dive deep into your own subconscious limiting beliefs that might be contributing as well. But anyway, you're being called into this vision, into seeing it clearly, into seeing the limitations around it clearly. Seeing the vision itself clearly is about making sure that that vision is something that is really aligned as your vision, as your truth. And seeing, so once you know for sure that the vision that you have is yours, then you start picking apart the reasons why that vision hasn't come to fruition, why it hasn't come to pass. A lot of times we want to always blame the external or the internal. We have this weird dichotomy thing going on, right? Where, oh, we can't do it because there's these external factors, or we can't do it because we are harsh on ourselves, or like, oh, I'm not good enough for that, or da 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 da. But we're going to dig more into that, into your psyche, and see what's going on in your shadow. Look at that. This makes me think that one of the main limitation of your visions, of your dream, of your hope, is that you ruminate, that you're so focused on the details of it and the anxiety around if it will come to pass, if you'll look foolish, if this, that, or the other, or if you'll implode your life over it, that it like freezes you up, right? It freezes you up. And so, getting frozen up and stagnant is the opposite of liberating your spirit, right? This vision that you have is the thing that brings you alive. So like, there's this idea of the flow state, correct? And the flow state is when you are so into something that you lose all sense of time. And it's almost like you meld into the project or the thing. You become it and it becomes you. And like, for example, when I read tarot, when I'm done with it, I don't even remember what I read for y'all. So when you comment, I have to like go back and watch the video, figure out what in the world it was even about. Because I get into a flow state, right? I'm just like, the messages are coming through. I'm channeling it. It's just happening. This is my vision, right? And so what is it that puts you in a flow state? Another thing for me is like cooking. I do it. I don't have to think about it. It just comes so naturally in such a flow and so much creativity. So that's the state you need to be in. And a lot of times the beautiful things that we love, we will sabotage by overthinking, right? Magic, create your reality. Yeah, exactly. Reality is what we create, this is really simplified physics, obviously, but whether you think of it as this being literal or a great metaphor for spirituality or not, just bear with me on the concept. So there's the idea that with a double slit experiment, they did this experiment and I think they like shot protons or something through these slits. And basically they were waves, but as soon as they were observed, they became particles. And so basically the act of observation caused them to change states. They would, and it would even happen where if they looked at it retroactively, they would change states. So like they would already be in the wave state, but then someone would observe them later, and then they would collapse into particles. So that the idea is that you collapse reality, like every possible future exists as a possibility or a wave. And then, oh, tinkle, tinkle, here comes my puppy. But when you make a decision, when you start moving through life, when you start moving through the world, the decisions you make collapse one reality into being, right? So use your magic. You know, we are all made of such magic. Like we forget how magical life is because we've turned things so mundane. When you get used to magic, it feels mundane, right? So like it's magical that, you know, we get to wake up every morning and look at the trees. There are aurora borealis, there's waterfall, there's food, there's laughter. And if those things are not happening in your life a lot, it could be a reason why your vision is stagnating, why you're ruminating. So finding those moments of magic in your everyday life. I actually have this thing, and I did some shorts on it a while back at the beginning of my channel called Mini Whimsies. But basically I have this thing I call the Whimsy Coconut, and I just put a bunch of random like 1 minute fun things to do in there. And when I'm starting to feel really, really heavy and I'm starting to take life really seriously and I forget about the absurdity of existence, I just pull one of those silly things out and read it and do it. And it might be something like sing to the moon or doodle. You know, it could be as simple as that. So remember, a lot of times if your vision has been covered up for a long time, embracing your magic instead of ruminating. So in those moments you want to ruminate, remember, we haven't solved problems by overthinking, right? You solve problems by trusting your intuition, by thinking logically when you need to, but also by like taking a break from thinking and letting your subconscious process it. And I call that dark nighting, based on St. John of the Cross's Dark Night of the Soul. And so basically you think about it a little bit and you're like, okay, you put this issue, this question clearly in your mind. And then you say, it's taken care of. And I even make a gesture like this, like pushing it from my consciousness to the subconscious, like beside my head. And then anytime I start trying to ruminate on it, I say, it's being taken care of. It's being taken care of. And this is what the ancient mystics talked about. But at the same time, this is also like neuroscience, right? So then when you let go of it, you're not ruminating it, you're not like enmeshed in the problem, and it actually gives you distance, right? You're not thinking about it, you're pushing away, you're trusting the process. And whether you believe it's the spirit or your subconscious, whatever, it works on it, it works on it. And then one day, sometimes in a few days, sometimes in a few weeks, you'll wake up in the morning and the answer will just be like right there. And you'll be like, oh, it's so obvious. Or it might just kind of wiggle its way up from into your mind. You'll start getting little whispers of words. And that's why it's also important with your magic to start learning to hear your inner voice and trust your inner voice. I feel like such a, it's not a lightness exactly. It's more like the lightness after heaviness. So it's like you're not quite at that place where you're feeling super liberated yet, but now you're starting to see, oh, I see the path and I'm stepping onto the path. And that is a liberating start. To be on the path of liberation is part of liberation. And what do I mean by deliberation? By liberation. Liberation is what makes your soul sing. Liberation is the thing to where you can move through the world authentically and lightly and love yourself. And when I say lightly, I just mean like move through life without clinging and grabbing and pushing for certain outcomes, right? It's accepting when you are heavy. It's accepting when your soul feels all crinkly. It's accepting yourself in every way with love and compassion in the good times and the bad times. It's not spiritual bypassing. It's nothing like that. Liberation is freedom from the conditioning, freedom from the programming, freedom from all of the pain that comes from, trying to mold your authentic self into what you're told. We have Peacock, raise your standards. Raise your standards. Oftentimes I get this card when it comes to like raising your standards about other people, which you absolutely should do, right? Because the right people will align with you and you won't have to instruct them or anything. But for this vision thing, it's like raise your standards for yourself. You're not giving yourself the credit that you deserve. If you think small about yourself, it's going to be really hard for you to follow your vision, because you're going to be like, oh, I'm not good enough or strong enough or smart enough to do this. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. This is your vision. This is your life. And I have this thing where it's like, you know what? Life is so short. Someday it's going to be over before I even know it. I just as well do some fun shit. I just as well experiment. I just as well be interesting. I just as well find something cool to do. And sometimes that just means sitting around playing a video game, but I'm just like, I'm owning it. That's the big thing, right? Like, make your decisions and then own it. I'm kind of like, I'm not going to sit here and complain that I just played video games for 3 days. I'm going to be like, apparently I needed that. Now, I don't use that as an excuse to just like not do anything else and not follow my vision, but tranquility, look at that. Liberation and tranquility go hand in hand, right? There's that old Buddhist saying that says, what do you do before enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. What do you do after enlightenment? Chop wood, carry water. Because the mundane, the physical world, is part of the magic, right? It is the magic. We like to try to separate them. There's always a big movement in spirituality for millennia to like separate the two. We're like, oh, I need to rise above these earthly, but really you're here in this existence. So you get to spend the rest of eternity, depending on what you believe or whatever, in the other place. Before you were born, you were, wherever. And after you pass, you'll be, wherever, that space, right? So you just as well make this magical, make it interesting, make it exciting. Don't get caught up. People talk about the Matrix all the time, but the Matrix is getting caught up in the fake manufactured drama of life, instead of just being like, oh, there's a tree. Oh, there's a person that I get along with and they get along with me. Let's hang out. Oh, we overcomplicate it so much, right? As a species, as humans, we lose our vision from that. 9 of Cups. You have to defend yourself from that kind of energy. Defend yourself from the kind of energy that gets you caught up in manufactured drama, that makes you feel heavy all the time, completely unnecessarily. Ace of Swords. Yeah, cutting through the bullshit. Cutting through the crap. 4 of Cups. Yeah, because when you get caught up in that energy, when you're unable to cut through the illusion, you get so bored and stagnant with life. It wouldn't matter if, the most beautiful sunset happened in front of your face. You wouldn't even notice it, right? Or it would seem boring and stuff, because you've internalized so deeply the cage that you've been put in. And you think that it's sort of like the thing where it's like, if you were born into, well, it's like Plato's cave. If you were born into a cave and no one ever told you about outside or whatever, you would literally think the entire world was that cave, right? You would literally think the entire world was that cave. And so that's the whole point of systems meant to keep people oppressed, meant to keep people in the box. They don't care about your vision. They don't care if it hurts you. But you care. You matter. Everyone matters. You don't want to get stuck in that energy. That's the giving up energy, right? Yeah. And this is the thing, the master of their emotions. And this does not mean King of Swords kind of master of your emotions. This means feeling everything without adding the story that you were taught to add to it, right? We're told like something like, for example, let's say you're talking to someone and, for a relationship or whatever. And this has nothing to do with a relationship, by the way. I'm just using this as an example. And they don't text back. Inherently, that doesn't mean anything. But what stories have you been taught to start adding to that? Oh, they don't like me, da-da-da. And then the whole story becomes about your own inadequacies, right? Like, oh, they must hate me. Oh, what did I do wrong? Oh, did I say too much? Oh, no, I double texted 17 days ago. Are they finally punishing me for that? But none of that, that's just the story, right? And so the King of Cups is an invitation to liberate yourself by letting reality speak for itself and then responding, letting your emotions respond to that. Instead of reality happens, you interpret it through the light of your conditioning, which escalates your emotional state. And then you start adding stories and stuff to it that make, and that causes a vicious cycle. All right. The Chariot. All right. Yeah, you're moving out of this energy. Like I said, I feel I feel very like star energy here, which is that you've been through a really rough time, but now you're starting to get your vision back after a long time. I'm feeling like years you were distracted with other people's drama, or life was very challenging or difficult. I'm feeling this card for your... And you're starting to see the light, the starlight after the crumbling of the tower. Be an inconvenience. Hell yeah. Be an inconvenience. We spend so much of our lives trying to make ourselves smaller. And you know what? The truth is the hater's gonna hate whether you make yourself small and compliant, or whether you are your full vibrant self and it's inconvenient for them. And I will say, so many of us lose our visions, lose our dreams, lose our hope, over ruminate, lose our magic. And like I said, it's always there. It's buried because other people make our default state feel like an inconvenience. Because when you are a thinker, when you're a dreamer, all those things, it is a mirror to people who are not in touch with their magic and their vision. And so they will manipulate you in subtle or direct ways to make yourself smaller, to make it feel like that your magic is outrageous, that you're too much. Well, you know what? Tell them to go find less. Like I said, I'm not talking about specific romance or whatever. Tell them, go find less. It is your right to be whole. You do not have to dismember pieces of yourself because other people can't handle vibrancy. All right. Thank you so much for being here, Alchemist. This was such a beautiful, beautiful, and I don't know what your specific, because everyone's vision, this is a collective, everyone's vision is different. But revive that vision by telling us in the comments below what your vision is. Yeah, put it back out there. Put that energy back out there. All right. I'll see you next time. Hello, Alchemist, and welcome to your initiation through doorway number 2. You chose the Poet. Ooh. What will make your spirit feel most liberated right now? Well, obviously with the Poet, I get two different ideas. First of all, to tap back into your creative potential, the things that really made you excited, made you sing, the creative project you wanted to do, but maybe you put off because you didn't feel like maybe you were allowed to do it. Like maybe it got put in your shadow bag as a kid. And as we've talked about before, your shadow bag is the part of you where basically you were criticized or, whatever growing up. So like maybe like you're just doing something like playing outside and someone's like, ooh, you're going to get dirty, come in. And so therefore you learn that playing outside is not, a safe activity. And therefore you internalize that. And then as an adult, you may not want to play outside or whatever, or you might be really scared of dirt. And so with the Poet energy, it's like, what part of yourself that was creative, that was fun, was disconnected from you, was put down. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I loved to sing really loud, and then, my parents would be like, make fun of me, right? And so then I was like, oh, I can't, I need to learn to be quiet and small. That's losing the art. And there's this quote, and I can't remember who said it, but basically it's saying like, art is necessity. Art is not an option. Creativity is, we acting like the humanities are optional instead of as important as everything else. Because if you have all of the math and all of the science and all that, that's great and that's needed. But it's cold without the beautiful balancing effect of music, of art, of poetry. And so I'm getting that, obviously, to tap into your creative self again. But I'm also getting a feeling around getting back to your mystical core. So when I was a kid, I used to like to lay outside on my back, and I would put my arms and legs out like this towards the sky, looking at the clouds, cloud gazing kind of. And I would feel like I was hanging off the edge of the planet. And as an adult, I would be like, I would feel silly doing that now. But why? What changed? What changed between 8-year-old me being so fascinated as I felt like, ooh, I'm on this planet hurling through space and my hands and stuff are out and it's like I'm hanging off the world. Nothing actually changed except perception. There's no specific moment that it's like suddenly like, you're an adult and you're not allowed to play anymore. But we pretend there is. We've imposed that. So the poet is an invitation to see the magical structure of life around you, to notice how poetic living actually is. All right, you don't have to like poetry or anything to understand this concept, right? Although one of the things that I used to do and that I'm trying to do again is me and my sisters, we would memorize poems, and then when we were taking walks, we would recite them to each other. So like we all have like, 30 or 40 poems memorized. And, obviously if I had done more over the years, I'd have a lot more. But in your shadow. Yeah, look at that. Sad clown. It's like, this is like a mime, more like a mime image in the spotlight, but sad. So it's sort of like, it wouldn't surprise me if you had been successful in all the ways that count to society, right? But that you could be left with a sort of a feeling of sadness, like something important's missing. If you were raised under this idea that basically creativity and art, it doesn't have to be direct. When people act like creativity and art and stuff are leisure activities and not vital for your mental health, right? That creativity is a passive thing, then a lot of people will think they're not even creative people because they never flex that muscle because they were taught that muscle wasn't important. And so that leaves them in a state of sadness. And a lot of times you won't even know you're in the sadness if you've always been in it, right? It's hard to recognize something until it's been exposed, right? Now this is exposed. This is in your shadow being exposed, that you're like, wait, where is the true fun? Because you can go and do things. You could go to Disney World. You could go boating, but still not feel like you're in it, right? You could go do all sorts of fun, interesting things. Be at a festival surrounded by people because you're like, oh, look, I'm living the dream or whatever. But then inside you cannot be really there. I don't know if that makes sense to you. But the poet is an invitation to work with that wounded inner child and tell them, we're going to have fun again, and then let yourself have fun. You might feel silly at first. It might not even be fun at first. Start with like something on your own so that you don't feel exposed, and do that, and then just expand from there until you're so unapologetic. Embrace uncertainty, the unknown. Yeah. Just like I said, just take that first little leap of faith, no matter how small. Just remember one thing that you enjoyed. Like I said, like the one thing, like just laying on my back, or like there's another thing I do. It doesn't snow much where I live, but when I was a kid, I lived in a place where it snowed a lot. So every time it snows, I go and make a snow angel, whether I want to or not, and I'm like, I don't want to get all dressed up and go out and fall on the ground and be all cold and then have to do a bunch of laundry and then take a shower. No. That's me crowding practical considerations, which should be thought of. But I'm like, you know what? We don't get snow often. I'm going to go out and make a freaking snow angel. And so I do. Face your fears. Release the power of fear. Yeah. Your soul, the unknown and fear in this, it just shows that deep in your shadow, that basically your creativity, your way of moving through the world has lost a lot of its magic and whimsy because of fear that was ingrained in you. Even in this Face Your Fears card, see, like she's like blindfolded here. But look how wondrous this is. There's like a shooting star. There's multiple planets. There's 3 moons. There's this horse. And, which is liberation and freedom. But she's blinded to it, right? Because the unknown is scary. There's this thing that says something like, our nervous systems don't want safety as much as they want familiarity. So yes, we want safety, but for our nervous systems, often familiarity feels like safety. So we're scared to step in the unknown because it's some kind of new thing, even though the unknown might hold the key to our liberation, right? Energy. Where are you putting your energy? And this has a lot to do with your thoughts too, because what you think you become. What you think you become. It's not who you think you are, it's what you think about you are. So if your energy is always towards what is lacking, you're only going to see what's lacking because you're training your mind to see lack, right? Wow, cards just jumping all out, so let's take them all. But if you put your energy towards, I'm not saying ignore problems. You never want to do that. You don't want a spiritual bypass. You don't want to manifest them. You don't want to do any of that. But you can be practical and see the truth of what's going on and face it directly while also keeping the magic and whimsy alive in your life and not falling into this despair because of your fear of uncertainty. Embrace uncertainty. It's the next adventure, right? The next adventure for you. Death. Look at that. Rebirth. This one's interesting because it's like a skeleton of maybe a peacock. It looks like it's kind of like puking all over this other skeleton. So I get the feeling of like revival. And so obviously we're often in the death throes of our old life while we're creating our new life. And that's the scary place. That's Da'at in the tree of life. That is the unknown space. But when you learn to embrace uncertainty, Da'at doesn't become painful anymore. It stops being painful and it becomes, ooh, look at the possibility. I'm walking on a blank slate. Yeah. 3 of Pentacles. Don't just get stuck looking inwardly. Find other people who love the things that you love. So if you're trying to get back into trivia or board games or, I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons, whatever it is that you like to do, art, find someone else to be your body double or your accountability partner or whatever, right? So like I said, if I love poetry and me and my sisters used to do that, then I might, in fact, I kind of should do this. Tell them, hey, when you come over this week, everyone have a poem ready. We're going to recite some poems. And so, the 3 of Pentacles is that call to like call on other people because you're more likely to hold on to this joy. You're more likely to follow through and keep going and not fall back into this energy if you have people by your side as you're embracing the unknown and uncertainty. The Tower. Ooh, this is really uncomfortable for you. right? I feel like you're used to kind of hiding away in your tower, but the tower crumbles because it was not built on a solid foundation, right? It was built on this kind of fear energy. And like I said, remember that you've got blind spots of pain, blind spots in your shadow of that's blocking your liberation, right? And it can be so scary. So just move at the pace that you can, because remember, if we don't integrate our lessons, then they won't stick. So don't feel like you have to rush into it and do anything drastic and crazy and like, I don't know, join 12 clubs tomorrow or something. I'm not saying that. I'm saying take the small steps to start making your magic, your whimsy, the things that make you shine a part of your day, even if it's 1 minute a day. And a lot of times it can be helpful to like link it to something else in your day. So like, oh, when I wake up and I eat breakfast, I always pick up a book and read. All I have to do is read one paragraph because I love reading and I want my imagination back. That's just a random thing. But you can do that. You can link that to something that you already do every day, right? So maybe instead of doom scrolling during that time, you'll do that one thing, right? Yep, the sun. That's the exact energy, right? Look at this transmutation from the tower to the sun. Feeling bright, feeling alive, feeling vibrant, feeling like even a little bit of vibrancy, even a little bit of whimsy. I don't know, like 5 minutes of whimsy can change your entire day. 30 seconds of whimsy can change your entire attitude for the day, right? And that can, whatever that means to you. If you like to build Lego Millennium Falcons or whatever, then, add 2 Legos a day. Because after a year, you'll have, and that's the thing. People think, oh, it's got to be all or nothing because our culture teaches that. Because they want us to spend more. And so therefore a lack mindset keeps us in a lack space, meaning we need to buy more to fill up that lack. But the truth is I like the Kaizen thing, which is basically 1%, do 1% of whatever it is. So, I have found out, like, for me, one of the things that helps a lot is to be like, oh, I don't have to do all of the dishes. I just have to go wash one dish. And then when I get over there and wash one dish, sometimes I'll wash them all. Sometimes I'll just wash the one, and that's fine because I was like, that's all. Because it's all about the games we play in our own minds, right? So much of the distress we feel in life is about the games we play in our own mind because of how we're taught. Ace of Swords, yep, cutting through that. Cutting through those games that we were trained in, the ones that are all in our shadow. Are we going to get through them all in this lifetime? No, but you just will work on it. 6 of Pentacles. Rising. 6 of Pentacles is abundance, but this is interesting because it's usually like kind of associated with money and things, but here it's like the abundance of living. Being out in nature is a form of abundance because it's about the abundance of spirit, of realigning with your core values that were maybe covered up by society's core values or some core values that really don't align with your spirit, but you were taught were the right core values. And you're here to question that. 3 of Swords. Yeah, because those have broken your heart over and over again. And here's what happens is society trains us to break our own hearts over and over again by training us to be attracted to people who activate us, not people who are good for us, by training us to feel lack, to feel like we're not enough. Yeah. And so basically societal conditioning will break our hearts when we're young. But then the worst part is they teach us to break our own hearts, right? Over and over again. And I would say this, like, so for example, even though this has nothing to do with relationship stuff, it's a lot of times it's easy to understand it through relationships. But when I was dating my avoidant ex, right, I knew early on that something was off, but I still kept trying because I thought, oh, you're supposed to keep trying. Oh, if I just teach him how to be, kinder to me, then things will change. What was that? I broke my own heart. He broke my heart, yes, but I broke my heart because I abandoned and betrayed myself. So this is an invitation to say, you know what? It's wrong and it hurts, and I have a lot of healing to do because society taught me to constantly break my own heart. But I am going to get back in touch with this. I'm cutting through that, going to get back in touch with this inner abundance so that I can shine. And that the tower isn't a wipeout. The tower is an opportunity. Let's see what the Cosmic Jester has to say. Some people cannot meet you where you are because they refuse to acknowledge maps even exist. And why is this person holding the remote control to your nervous system? And so what I get from these two cards, and this is from my personal deck that I made, this is about the people and the systems that built the nervous system that keeps you in this mindset, right? These people refuse to acknowledge that mystical things, magical things, joy and all that is important, is good. The only thing that counts is productivity. The only thing that counts is how you look to other people. That is a lie, right? From a broken person trained to break another person so that you can be, they were trained to break their own heart. So therefore that's the paradigm that they're training you in. And this is what happens. Not only does that person who originally taught you those things in control of your nervous system, but it makes your nervous system a target for other people. It's like people can sense it, right? Because I grew up in a situation where my nervous system was at the whim of, an unstable parent. And so what happened? Nervous system is seeking familiarity. What did I find? Who was I a target for? People similar to that. And so this is where it's your self-sovereignty, your power. Art is a doorway. In shamanic practice, there are these ideas that shamanic initiation, and once again, this is just one idea. So I'm not saying that I'm like a master of shamanic knowledge or anything, nothing like that. This is just, one way of perceiving it. But there's this idea that there are three ways. There's the shamanic path of madness, of death, and of art. And now it doesn't mean literal death or literal madness necessarily, but it means basically coming to enlightenment or understanding or gnosis through the mind, which a lot of times will feel crazy because there's that idea of like spiritual awakening is not like a bunch of lotus flowers. Spiritual awakening is like, existence, oh my God. And then the path of death is like through physical things, like you might get ill or you might have a lot of things go wrong in your physical life. And that is the thing that pushes you towards the awakening. But the third one is the one no one ever talks about, which is the path of art and creativity. You can come through the same gnosis through the inner world of creativity. And remember, this is all like metaphoric. And so, yeah, focus on yourself, your creativity, on healing, on loving your inner child. You would not treat another child like garbage. Don't treat your inner child like garbage. Don't treat your inner child the way other people treated you as a child, right? Grab that remote back to your own nervous system and don't ever give it away again. Because it's yours. It's yours. It's yours. Stop breaking your own heart because other people told you that's what you should do. You deserve better than that. Thank you for being so wonderful and for being here, Alchemist, and doing the great work, because when you do the work, it helps the entire world. All right. Please comment below what your inspiration is. What is your creative release? I'd love to hear about it. And continue the great work, Alchemists. Hello, Alchemists, and welcome to your initiation through doorway number 3. You chose the thread. What will make your spirit feel most liberated right now? The thread is an archetype that has a lot of different meanings. There's the idea of like, oh, I'm at the last thread, like the last thread's about to break. So it's got like a transmutation sort of energy to it. But for this, I'm feeling like threads, as in connections with other people. So it might be that, so like I have this kind of thing. I'm like fascinated with like mushrooms because, you know, that fungus is everywhere. Like it comes in lots of different forms, but specifically mushrooms because, you know, when you see a mushroom, that's just the fruit, right? The entire entity is this huge network that almost look like vessels or something, like white vessel, like white blood vessels or something. And it's moving through the ground, and it's like an information network, right? Where the trees and plants and stuff are communicating with each other. So these threads hold everything together. And so when I'm thinking spiritually, I see, you know, like this idea of these mycelial or these connections between people. And sometimes I envision them as, you know, they can get really thick and, you know, they'll be really clean and clear looking. So like if two people are connected in a healthy way, that's how I see it. But then you can see, you know, ones that are just barely connected. And even I feel like energetically, when you just walk past a person, yours and their energy that way just connects briefly, and then it'll just rip right back apart, right? So we're always constantly connecting the people around us. But also in unhealthy relationships, when I kind of envision it, I see it as like rotten, you know, like it'll be green or black or gooey or goopy or whatever. And so the idea so far, and we're going to look at your shadow and some other things, is liberating yourself has to do with tightening those healthy threads, following those healthy threads, and loosening the toxic threads to other people, right? Yeah, I love this. In your shadow, you know, there's probably some people in your life you have not let go of because it feels like way too much of a burden, way too scary. Like you're just a little kid with a sword and this is a dragon. But in a lot of ways, this is kind of a goofy little dragon, right? It doesn't even look like it's going to attack. Like a lot of times it's not as bad as you think. But also the other part of this that I get is find people who are playful. Your inner child is like, I want to play. Are you surrounded by people who kind of fuddy-duddies and they kind of suck all the fun out of things? Or sometimes it'll even be people who seem fun on the surface, but they have subtle ways of diminishing you. So make sure that you're letting go or loosening those threads and finding people. You want to tighten the threads with people who make you feel like the best version of yourself. Because we're all sorts of different people. Like I know with certain people in the past, I've been real melancholy, right? I become a really melancholy person. And then when I'm with my sisters or something, I am so silly, so goofy. And I'm like, you know what? That's the version of myself I like being. I like being vibrant. Yeah, I get super serious into philosophy, into cool paranormal supernatural stuff. I get really deep dive holes into life, the universe, and everything. But then I want to be goofy. You know, we have silly quotes. That's why I do the day in the life of the mystic thing. Because I'm like, you know what? Shadow work is heavy. You got to be a goofball sometimes. Life, you know, as Alan Watts said, life is far too serious a thing to, or far too important of a thing to take seriously. Creativity. Use your imagination. If you felt drawn to doorway number 1, I would check that out too, because it was all about embracing your creativity. But in this, it's reminding what I literally just said, which is find people that bring out the creative, wonderful, fun part of you. If someone's always bringing out only the caretaker, only the fixer, only the one who's got to be serious and got to be the only adult in the room, maybe that's not where you belong. You belong in a space where everyone is responsible for their own feelings and stuff, and you guys help and support each other, but no one expects that they're going to have fun and stuff at your expense. Leadership, set your goals. Part of this is just being able to hold correct boundaries, because when you're able to hold boundaries about being your authentic self, if your authentic self scares people away, I have a card in my Cosmic Jester deck that says something like this. If your authentic self scares people away, then it's working as intended. There's nothing wrong with you. if your authentic self chases someone away, it just means they're not for you. There's 8 billion people. So we're taught this idea of scarcity, that like if we don't get this specific person in our lives or this specific friend, then that's it. And I think it's because it makes us feel like people are disposable, which they're not. Everyone's unique and interesting and fun. And in that, it's a mirror making us feel like we're disposable to other people. Now that's shadow work there, right? But the truth is everyone is special, everyone is cool, and everyone is wonderful, but that doesn't mean everyone's for you and you're for everyone. And the idea is to disconnect the idea that if you are rejected from somebody, that it's about you. It's just not alignment. Just like when you reject somebody else, and I'm not saying be mean and harsh and stuff, but it just means, oh, they're not for me. I'm not for them. It's fine. There are 8 billion other people I can go find somebody in, right? Lead yourself. Positivity. Find those people. Connect those threads that make you feel like your brightest self, that bring out your leadership qualities, that bring out your creativity. A lot of times we can be so scared of actually liberating ourselves that we keep ourselves kind of locked away in that cage of, oh, when stuff aligns perfectly outwardly, then, I'll be able to meet the right people and stuff. But even though it can be very challenging to meet people who align, the more you're in alignment with yourself, the more you'll align with them, because there's that thing where it's like attracts like. So like I use this example. So for example, if you're looking for a friend, but you want a friend who brings out the bright, wonderful part of you, right? But you're a real fuddy-duddy. You're the negative Nancy. You're the, whatever. Then a person who's going to bring out the brightest part of you might be like, ooh, their energy is going to bring me down. So maybe I don't want to align with that. It doesn't mean go out being fake. It means develop the best version of yourself and don't distract yourself with connections or threads to people that keep you in that lower vibration. I hope that made sense. 4 of Cups. Yeah. Don't let, this card's about like stagnation and boredom with what you have in your life. Don't settle for mediocre because you're afraid you won't get better. Keep leveling yourself up and your connections will level up. It doesn't mean abandon good friends and things like that, but I'm talking about if the people you're around don't bring out the highest, brightest version of yourself. Now, this isn't saying that you have to be performative. We all have our bad moments. We all have our cry, weepy. I know I have my weepy moments any night after 11 p.m. But the point is that you're not making, you're not being negative all the time or like making your entire personality about that positivity card there. And so a lot of people will waste away in connections that are not bad, but not really good. Khalil Gibran, the poet, he says, do not love half lovers, do not entertain half friends, do not indulge in works of the half talented. Because he's just saying life is meant to be lived completely and fully. Don't trade your full vitality for some meh safety, right? Page of Swords. Getting back that childlike joy and energy. 8 of Pentacles. Connections, connections, connections. Connect to other people. Connect to yourself. This isn't exactly a mirror, but it kind of looks like a mirror behind. And the idea is that there's actually no reflection in it. So there's this poem by Rumi says, let go of your worries and be completely clear-hearted like the face of a mirror that contains no images. So like don't project, don't expect, don't take on other people's personalities, right? Connect yourself to people who love your personality and don't make you change, because two people will change each other naturally in a beautiful way when they're both giving space for their own authenticity. Look at that. We're just really getting, this is the community helping, lifting each other up kind of card. The world. Closing out a cycle of being around people who encourage a victimhood mentality. And as a person who survived a lot of trauma, I would never victim shame people who see themselves as victims and stuff. We all go through these kind of cycles, you know, moving from a victim mentality to survivor mentality, but then moving from survival mode to thriving mode. Those are all tied together, and there's no shame in which part of the journey you're on. The point is you're on the journey, right? So be gentle with yourself, but there is a closing out of a cycle here, a closing out potentially of connections, as I've been talking about the whole time, that kind of bring your energy and your flow down. Learn to love yourself and you'll attract people who love the real you. I had a quote that I said somewhere. I use quotes from here to make little quote graphics for my pages. Like I take them from my videos, but basically the idea is that if you make friends while wearing a mask, like, so basically you have your persona, which is the face that is acceptable to the world, the mask that you put on that's acceptable to the world. If you make your friends wearing your persona, you're going to have to wear that mask or the friendship's going to die, right? So it's best to stop and make friends with your real face. And then there's another one by Franz Kafka. I think it's like, you know, I was ashamed when I realized life was a costume party and I came with my real face. And that's the crux of it, right? They make us ashamed for who we are. Don't give them that satisfaction. And when you find the right people, you'll never doubt that your authenticity is the right space to be in again. But sadly, a lot of times you can't find that until you accept it yourself. That's the inner work, right? The raven outside your window would like to remind you that self-sacrifice is not a personality type. Do you miss them or your story about them? Now, this is where I was talking about like the victim mentality. Self-sacrifice is not a personality type. You do not have to sacrifice who you are, your vibrancy and stuff to make people who haven't done the work feel more comfortable. You do not have to get smaller because people who didn't do the work yet or are refusing to do the work can't handle your whole self. Let that fade away. Let it be information and not a story about who you are, because it has nothing to do with you, right? The right people will bask in your light, not try to make it smaller, not try to feed off of it. And then this, obviously, it says, do you miss them or your story about them? Since we're not talking about a specific person, we're talking about your liberation. This is reminding you to carefully watch the stories that you tell yourself about everything, especially about your relationships and your friendships and your family. And try to separate those stories from objective reality about the situation. Many a person has stayed in a destructive friendship, relationship, situation, because the story we're taught is that you don't give up on people. But really, sometimes the only way to help a person and yourself is to make distance between, right? Because maybe we confuse that helping with enabling. We end up enabling people to continue, draining us and stuff because we think that we're doing the nice thing. That's the story, that we're the nice person, right? Well, you're doing the great work, and this work is not easy. And if this scratches at you, remember that's exactly what you need to hear. If it scratches at you, it's exactly what you need to hear. And the great thing about shadow work is a lot of times all you need to do is hear it, because your subconscious hears everything that I'm saying, and it's already going to start doing the work. So if you start feeling agitated over the next few weeks, it's because your subconscious is working through all this stuff. So continue the great work, alchemists, and tell me below how you are strengthening those powerful, healthy threads and dissolving the other ones. There's actually like a meditation I do a lot, which is basically before I go to bed, it's like a releasing energy, and I picture these threads coming from my body, and the ones are bright and golden and glowing, I strengthen those, and the ones that look sickly or weak, I just let those fade away and dissolve. So basically the ones for my highest good, I strengthen. The ones that are leading me astray, I let go. And this could be my connections to people, situations, the timeline or future that is in my best, for my highest self and highest growth. All right, I'll see you next time.